Hey there, how are you today? My name is Dana Demara, and you have landed on Astrocast. This is the full moon report for the full moon in Aries coming up this week, September 29th at 2:56 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which means at 2:56 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, that's when the full moon is at its fullest. So, those of you who are awakened in the middle of the night by the moon, this could be one of those weeks. If my memory serves me correctly, this is the last supermoon, super full moon that we'll have for a while. We've actually had 4 in a row. And it is the full moon that is leading up to eclipse season, what we call eclipse season in astrology. This full moon is carrying the energy from March of 2023 when we had the last Aries full moon, and then we had a couple of eclipses. So I would say from the very beginning, let's just think about for a moment whatever we had going on intention wise or just tension wise, anything happening. Maybe you started a project, maybe something happened in a relationship, maybe you were working through something that stands out to you from March of 2023. This energy, that energy is carried up until now. So hopefully you'll find clarity, you'll find a resolution. This is a culmination. This is kind of like an end point, if you will. But remember that end points are always beginning points for something else. So don't get too excited. And absolutely don't look for anything, right? So everything that I try to share with you in these podcasts are, they're just generalizations of how the energy is landing in the chart all on its own. Now, if you were to take your chart and put your natal chart up against it, that's where we're going to find a little bit more detail of how this chart could or could not impact you. However, full moons impact everyone in some way, shape, or form. In fact, all of the cosmic energy informs and affects each one of us in some way, shape, or form, whether we know it or not, right? But if the moon's making the waves, then I'm feeling like potentially the moon could be affecting you somehow. So this full moon in Aries, beautiful full moon in Aries, really, truly. There's not any aspects per se to the moon, which besides the sun being opposite the moon, but there are a whole bunch of other energies happening that are going to kind of sway this energy in a certain way. So I want to share my screen with you. There we go. Okay, so a couple things. Here's the moon. Moon is in Aries. Here's good old Neptune, still across from Mercury. We'll talk about that a little bit. But we also have Chiron and the North Node in the sign of Aries. And so Chiron is the healer. Chiron is, all about bringing that spiritual warrior-esque energy to our playing field of our life, if you will. And anybody who was born between 68 and 77 is right now going through their Chiron return, which is what I like to talk to my clients about. It's sort of like it's not an identity crisis, it's an identity awareness. It's asking those questions like, who am I and what do I really want to do in this lifetime, and how do I really want to use my time, and how can I use my gifts? And so this Chiron return has been a big one. Chiron's been sitting in Aries since 2018. It's going to sit there until 2026. So kind of a sweet little energy for all of you Chiron Aries people. But this Aries full moon really holds a lot of energy for us to realize our I don't want to say like our dreams, but our intentions, right? And it really is, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac wheel. So remember, Aries is very headstrong. Aries is very, it's the first sign. It's like, well, I want to do this. I want to be the ram. I want to be the first to be there. I want to, I have all these great things. I always think of Aries as like the first, like it's the soul's first time around. Of course, I have no idea proving that, but the energy of newness and wanting to move forward into the next thing. And this is beautiful, right? But let's keep in mind that, our emotions will be heightened under this in particular Aries full moon, because we have eclipse seasons coming up just after, right? So it will be, we're moving into the energy of relationship shifting, things shifting, something will shift, something always shifts with eclipses. But I want to go back a little bit to what I think is really influencing this moon, and that's back to Chiron and North Node. So, Chiron, like I said, is very much about healing and taking on that. It really is, for lack of a better explanation, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Chiron is, the myth around Chiron in a nutshell is that Chiron was born half centaur and half man and was ousted by his family. He was the ugly duckling, so to speak, and adopted by Apollo and the great warrior. And so, became this beautiful, strong warrior. But the premise is that Chiron used his wound of abandonment, his deepest wound. He used that wound to heal. So he became this, really powerful being in mythology. And so I think sometimes in our American culture, we tend to hide our wounds or not talk about them, or maybe there's some sort of shame around them. When really, when we drop into our wounds, when we really are like, oh my gosh, this can really be my heart healer, this is what happens. And so with Chiron around this full moon, pretty close, actually. I'm gonna share my screen and just show you how close Chiron is. I mean, not on top of the moon, but here's Chiron at 18 degrees, and the moon is going to be at 6 if my eyesight serves me well. So, the energy is one of illuminating, because if the moon is opposite the sun, which always happens on a full moon, Chiron at some point is also opposite the sun, and the moon and the sun will illuminate these healing opportunities. Okay. So just be in a space of understanding that if there's something, especially if it began around March 2023, but there's something that you're trying to heal or something that you just want to work through, this is the time to do it, and to do it with love, right? To do it with a sense of love and appreciation and gratitude. So there's that work that comes in. And then the North Node in Aries. North Node, it is our it's our karma, if you will, our lessons in life. It's our written karma. So our North Node is pointing in the direction of where we want to go in this lifetime, right? So, and there's always the South Node. So there's the North Node and the South Node, right? So we're moving away. In this case, we're moving away from Libra ways, which is about relationships and balance and all of this, and we're moving toward, energetically, we're moving toward self-awareness and independence and just the sense of autonomy. That's Aries. Okay. So when we look at these energies, all known, hovering around this full moon, not close enough to make a true aspect to the moon or the sun, but hovering, I feel and I think about grief. I think about letting go. I think about compassion. I think about, releasing. I think about talking about whatever has been bothering us. I think about closing that loop, whatever that loop is. So I don't know what that is for you or how that resonates with us, but, to move through that type of energy then allows us not to become, swallowed up by it, right? So just whatever Chiron triggers during this full moon for you, know that it's perfect time, because you don't want to be holding on to that stuff during an eclipse, that's for sure. And then I do want to talk a little bit about some of the aspects that aren't necessarily happening to the moon and the sun, but that are happening within this little planetary orchestra. Okay, because it's important. This moon really, really wants us to purge out what we don't need anymore in order to come to a higher vibratory frequency. And I feel like that's kind of our goal in life anyways, or maybe not a goal, but an intention, is to kind of move out of the places that keep us stuck or stagnant or feeling like, I don't know, just bogged down, frustrated, overwhelmed, right? Like we can feel all of these things and we could use them to our advantage to learn about ourselves. But ideally, we want to come back to the remembrance that we were really brought here, or we chose to be here to be happy. And we chose to be here so that we could be in that higher vibe, so that we can, experience those really cool synchronicities, or when you think about someone and then they call you, like those sorts of things, or where we like wake up and we marvel at nature. We're not hurrying up and getting on our phones. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is really why we're here. And so this full moon is asking us to remember that. This full moon is like, what is holding you back? Just whatever it is, I'm not even going to put any projections out there. Whatever it is, what is it? And let's just be done. Right. So I'm going to come back to my screen so I can show this to you. So in order to do that, and I know this to be true, we can't just say, okay, I want to let this thing, this person, this idea, this pattern, whatever go. We have to actually put in the work to start to become the person that we want to be, right? Or that we want to attract, right? So we want to start to watch how we're showing up in relationships. We want to ask ourselves, what is this mirroring to me? Like, how is this relationship supporting the awareness of me? Not from a narcissistic standpoint, from a really, truly, what is this? And I would say, great, go with the ones that are present with you every day, that make you feel good, those relationships that are really beautiful. And then I would say, like, look at some of the relationships that are challenging, and just remember that everything is a mirror, right? Mars is opposite Chiron. So with Mars opposite Chiron, Mars is down here. When Mars is opposite Chiron, Mars, is the planet of initiation. So Mars is like, and an opposition and a square are always challenging aspects. So when Mars is opposite Chiron, this is really an energy that's asking you to get healed already. Like, stop ruminating, stop looking for something that isn't there, stop blaming, whatever the story is, and just get along that path. Like, this is, you only get one of these lives, so let's do it in a way that's, I don't want to say appropriate, I don't know what else to say, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. And then Mars sextile Venus too. So Mars is also making an aspect to Venus, and Mars and Venus are down here. So Venus is right here and Mars is right here. And so when Mars sextiles Venus, a sextile is actually very positive. It's very soft. It's very feminine. It's it's about love and passion and abundance, and really being in a space of creativity. So Mars and Venus in a sextile are really beautiful. And then I would say Mercury opposite Neptune, which is a pretty long transit here. Here's Mercury. And then, here's Mercury down here, and then here's Neptune up here. And with Mercury opposite Neptune, it really is about, Mercury is the lower mind, and then Neptune is the unseen, right? So this is about using your imagination. This is about dropping into your spirituality. This is about really trying to decipher. Remember, oppositions are challenging. So this is about learning to decipher truth from illusion. Like, what's real and what am I just making up in my head? Because this is important, because our head is like so, like, our mind is so wise and powerful, and it can really trick us into some really great illusions or some kind of crazy fantasy, right? And so under this full moon, be really mindful about maybe some instances you have going on, whether it's, career or in a relationship. Use your imagination for sure. Like hone in on that imagination. When Neptune and Mercury are opposite one another, Neptune is still in retrograde, but Mercury isn't. So when we're in this energy, it's like, how can you, turn like a beautiful storyline imagined in your head or visualization into manifest into the world, but it can also really cloud your judgment. So with all these aspects considered, we also have one with Venus and Uranus, and that also creates a little bit of tension around relationships. With all these aspects considered, one of the best things you can do with this full moon, I know you're waiting for this, is to take a break. Like, don't make any huge decisions. Don't commit to anything. Just sort of allow things to play out if you can. Obviously sometimes you can't, but if you can, and drop into that, that mystical side of who you are. Maybe turn off your phone, maybe go out into nature and just marvel at something that is just living and breathing without you doing anything about it. And that's kind of amazing to do that every now and again. And remember that we're this just teeny tiny itty bitty speck in the whole universe. Sometimes I think when we get into our minutia, when we get into our day-to-day, that's where we create all the tension, right? So maybe for a couple days before, a couple days after, if you can just kind of peace out. I'm out for today. And I think the 29th is a Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. And if you don't have to be at work or be somewhere, maybe try to use the time wisely. If you do, carve out a couple hours for yourself, carve out some time to just be quiet and still. And, the question is like, what do you need to let go of in order to really experience this life from the place that you're desiring? Mars is super active. So Mars is like, what do you want? What do you want? Let's do it. I just need to know which way to go. Right. So I hope this is helpful for you. This week, if you live in Encinitas, this week, I'm hosting a sound bath on the Bluff at Alila Maria. It's not part of the hotel. It's actually something that you can do through danandamara.com. And I host sound baths every Wednesday, but I love when they fall pretty close to the full moon. So we'll be there Wednesday night at 6. That's all on my website. If you want your chart read, which I think is always a good idea, at least once a year, to just see what's coming up for you, please reach out to me. Again, it's at danandamara.com. And just go to it's like one-on-ones or work with me or something, and then you just can look for astrology readings and then book it. It's that time of the year. It's good to know what's coming up, and if you don't, just listen, learn, enjoy, use the information to your advantage. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day and an awesome full moon. Take care. Namaste.